Welcome to the Lenny and Maria Sanchez audio and video podcast series. Today we are really digging into four powerful narratives that seem to be shaping our world right now. We're talking about deep-seated fears of control, the potential for economic collapse, a major shift in global military power, and what some are calling a full-blown crisis of reality itself.
Okay, let's get right into it. We're going to walk through each of these modern anxieties, module by module, to really understand the arguments that are starting to question some of our most fundamental systems.
So first up, we're going to explore this argument that all of our new technology isn't just about convenience. The claim is that it's actually building this unprecedented, massive system for monitoring and control. Yeah, our source material on this, the Expose, does not pull any punches. It calls the merging of our money and our identity a digital prison. That's a pretty stark warning. But, what does the architecture of a prison like that actually look like?
And this isn't just theory. This slide is detailing a real-world AI security system from a company, UMCA Technologies. It watches everything you do financially in real time. It uses behavioral analytics, which means it learns your spending habits so it can flag anything that seems weird. It even uses your phone's location and a unique device fingerprint to know where you are when you spend. All of that info gets fed into a model that gives you, yes, you, a risk score. And if that score gets too high, it can instantly cut you off from your own money.
So you have a private company with this incredible technology for financial surveillance. Now, according to the source, this gets way more powerful when you plug it into a universal, government-run digital ID system. So what would that even look like?
Well, the source points to two systems over in the UK that it argues could be the building blocks. On one side, you've got the gov.uk wallet. It's a mobile app set for 2025, made to hold your digital driver's license, that sort of thing. The plan is to have a digital version of every physical ID by 2027. Then, on the other side, there's the proposed Brit card. This would be a mandatory, universal digital ID for everyone. And here's the kicker. The source points out that this Brit card would be stored on the gov.uk wallet app. The two systems would be linked. Critics, who are cited in the source, are warning that this could lead to a society where your access to basic things, like money, travel, even healthcare, is based on permission, and that permission could be revoked in an instant. Okay, next, let's pivot from digital control to the global economy. Some really foundational ideas about things like a single world currency and free trade are being seriously challenged, painting a picture of a world that's actually breaking apart, not coming together. Now, to really wrap our heads around the argument against a single world currency, we first need to understand this key concept, the optimum currency area, or OCA. So the economist who won a Nobel for this, Robert Mundell, basically said that for a single currency to work without causing huge problems, you need two things. People have to be able to move freely to find work, and money has to be able to move freely to find investment opportunities. Think of it as the economy's suspension system.
So this is what happens when that suspension system is missing. Let's say an economic shock slams country A, but country B is totally fine. Now, if they had their own currencies, country A's would fall in value, which would help it recover. But since they share a currency, that can't happen. The result, according to the source, is this permanent mess. Country A gets stuck with terrible unemployment, and country B gets hit with crazy inflation. The argument is, since the whole world is definitely not an optimum currency area, a single global currency would be an absolute economic catastrophe.
Okay, so if a single global currency is just not workable, what about going to the other extreme? The source then looks at the rise of economic nationalism and asks, can countries just build walls of tariffs and protect themselves that way?
And this table just perfectly illustrates the problem with that idea. I mean, look at how tangled up even the BRICS nations are with the West. The United States is a top 3 export destination for China, India, Brazil, and South Africa. It's right there. The point the source makes is that in this deeply interconnected world, starting a simple tariff war isn't like performing surgery. It's more like chucking a live grenade into a finely tuned machine. It's going to damage everyone, very possibly including yourself.
All right, now we're going to shift gears from the subtle world of economics to a very direct message of power. Our source for this, the UN's Review, interprets a recent military parade in China not as just some national celebration, but as a carefully staged message of military strength aimed directly at the West.
Yeah, the analysis in the source is incredibly blunt. It says, the real talking wasn't being done by any politicians giving speeches, it was being done by the hardware rolling down the street. The message, it argues, was sent in the one language the West seems to understand above all others, force. And that message was crystal clear. China is ready.
The author of the source material, who really follows this stuff, said he was, and I'm quoting here,
dumbfounded. He's not just talking about the number of new weapons, but the fact that these are all in-service systems. We're talking new hypersonic anti-ship missiles designed to take out aircraft carriers and these huge unmanned subs that could make entire oceans visible to them. The real shock wasn't just seeing the technology, but the implicit announcement that it's all deployed and ready to go right now.
So, what's the first big takeaway from this massive display? According to the source, it's that China has built a kind of impenetrable shield around itself. A kill web, they call it, designed to stop any ship or plane that gets too close to their shores, stretching way out into the Pacific. The goal is pretty clear. Make it so costly for anyone to intervene in that region that they won't even try.
The second message is a direct shot at the idea of technological superiority. The source is arguing that the tech on display proves that China isn't playing catch-up anymore. The era when the US could count on facing a less advanced opponent, well, according to this analysis, that era is over.
And that leads to the final and frankly the most chilling message of all, the end of safety through geography. By showing off its complete nuclear triad, bombers, subs, and missiles, China was demonstrating it could survive a first strike and hit back. The source reads this as a very clear signal that the continental US is no longer a sanctuary, which completely changes the strategic math for any future conflict.
All right, for our final module, we're turning from these big external forces to something more internal, a crisis of trust. It seems that the official stories we used to rely on, from health authorities to the government itself, are starting to crumble, leaving this huge vacuum of uncertainty and really profound questions about what's even true anymore.
Our source for this section, Coffee and COVID, uses this incredibly powerful and kind of gruesome metaphor to describe what it sees as a new crackdown on pharmaceutical advertising. It's not one big move, but something a lot slower and more methodical.
So to get the strategy, you have to get the term. Lin Shi, Death by 1,000 Cuts, was this slow, agonizing process. The source argues that this is exactly what's happening to Big Pharma. It's not one giant new law, but a whole series of small, relentless regulatory changes designed to just bleed their influence dry. A perfect example is closing a loophole that's going to force drug companies to list every single side effect in their TV ads, which would make most of them completely impractical to air.
And this collapse of trust, it goes way beyond just one industry and veers into the truly bizarre. I mean, look at this. This is footage that was recently shown in a congressional hearing. You're seeing a US drone fire a Hellfire missile at some kind of glowing orb over Yemen. The missile hits, and the object just seems to absorb it, then float away unharmed. So here's the absolute crucial point the source makes about this. The importance of this video isn't necessarily about proving aliens are real. It's about proving that the public has been lied to, systematically. For decades, official sources denied there was any credible evidence of things like this. And now, that same government is presenting military footage that seems to confirm the very things they spent years dismissing. This just creates a fundamental crisis of trust, and it leads people to ask, okay, if they lied about that, what else are they lying about? What is actually real?
And that's really what ties all four of these narratives together. Whether it's the fear of a digital prison, the fracturing of the global economy, the shocking rise of a new military superpower, or this deep, sinking feeling that reality itself is becoming unstable, all of these anxieties are forcing us to face a world where the old rulebook has been thrown out. The question they all leave us with isn't just about what the future is going to look like, but how in the world do we find our footing when the ground beneath our feet feels like it's constantly shifting? Thank you for listening to another session of the Lenny and Maria Sanchez audio and video podcast series produced and archived at the website dailybriefs.info.